The old Blackwood Manor stood silhouetted against a bruised twilight sky, a skeletal finger pointing accusingly at the heavens. Its windows were like vacant eyes, staring out over the overgrown, untamed grounds that had swallowed the last remnants of its former glory. For decades, it had been a place of whispers and warnings, a local legend best left undisturbed. But curiosity, as it often does, had a way of deafening ears to caution. Sarah pushed open the heavy oak door, its groan echoing through the cavernous foyer like a dying breath. A cloud of dust motes danced in the single, defiant beam of her flashlight, illuminating a scene frozen in time and decay. She swept the light across the room, revealing the ghostly shapes of furniture draped in white cloths, cobwebs strung like macabre decorations from a grand crystal chandelier. The air was thick and cold, carrying the scent of damp earth and forgotten memories. Her every footstep on the creaking floorboard seemed an intrusion, a desecration of the mansion's solemn silence. Close-ups would capture the intricate details of decay, peeling wallpaper revealing dark stains beneath, a grandfather clock with its hands frozen at midnight, and the delicate skeletal remains of a spider on its web. The silence didn't last. A soft, indistinct whisper slithered into her ear, a sound with no discernible source. Sarah froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. She swept her flashlight across the empty hall, finding nothing. Then, a flicker of movement in her periphery, a shadow darting across a distant doorway, too quick and too defined to be a trick of the light. As she stood paralyzed by a mixture of fear and intrigue, a door at the end of the hall began to creak open, inch by agonizing inch, unveiling a corridor steeped in impenetrable darkness. It was an invitation, a dare she felt inexplicably compelled to accept. Drawn deeper into the mansion's heart, she found a small study, its contents remarkably preserved beneath a layer of dust. On a mahogany desk lay an old leather-bound diary, its pages brittle with age. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. The spidery, faded ink chronicled a life of sorrow, belonging to a young girl named Lily who lived in the manor a century ago. The entry spoke of loneliness, of cruel parents, and a tragic accident, a fall from the highest window. The last entry was a single chilling sentence: "I will never leave this place, no one will." A soft weeping sound echoed from the end of the corridor she had just passed. Sarah's blood ran cold. She raised her flashlight, and its beam landed on a small, translucent figure. It was a child, a girl in a tattered white dress, her long black hair obscuring her face. The ghostly figure's sobs were filled with an ancient, unbearable sorrow. Slowly, as if sensing Sarah's presence, the child turned. The face was pale and featureless, except for two burning crimson orbs that glowed with malevolent intensity. The soft crying twisted into a guttural, enraged shriek. The ghostly child lunged, its form contorting as it soared down the hallway towards her. A scream tore from Sarah's throat as she scrambled backward, tripping over a rolled-up rug. She fled, a frantic, desperate sprint through the labyrinthine mansion. The chilling wail pursued her, echoing from all directions at once. She glanced back, her terror peaking as she saw the figure gliding effortlessly behind, its red eyes burning through the gloom. Corridors twisted into dead ends, doors slammed shut before her, the very house seeming to conspire against her escape. With a final, desperate burst of adrenaline, Sarah slammed her shoulder against the great oak door and stumbled out into the cool night air. She fell to her knees on the damp ground, gasping for breath, her body trembling uncontrollably. She risked a look back at the Blackwood Manor, now silent and dark once more, an unmoving tombstone under the moonlight. The ordeal seemed over, a nightmare from which she had finally awoken. But the dread lingered, a cold knot in the pit of her stomach. Her eyes were drawn to a specific window on the top floor, the one mentioned in the diary. For a fleeting moment, a faint, shadowy silhouette appeared, the small figure of a child looking down at her. Then it was gone. Sarah knew with a certainty that chilled her to the bone that while she had escaped the mansion, a part of its darkness would follow her forever. Amongst the forgotten relics and dusty cast-offs of a weekend flea market, a glint of polished mahogany caught Alex's eye. It was a music box, an old, ornate thing with intricate carvings of swirling vines and strange, almost leering faces etched into the wood. The craftsmanship was exquisite, a relic from a bygone era when such things were made with patience and artistry. He felt an inexplicable pull towards it, a strange fascination that went beyond simple appreciation for an antique. Alex, intrigued, reached out and picked it up. It felt heavy in his hands, solid, as if it held more than just a simple musical mechanism. He ran a finger over the dusty lid, tracing the path of a carved serpent, a sense of coldness seeping into his fingertip despite the day's warmth. He bought it without a second thought, driven by an impulse he couldn't quite name, and took the peculiar little box home. Later that night, the city's cacophony faded to a distant hum, leaving Alex's apartment wrapped in a profound silence. The streetlights cast long, skeletal shadows across the floor, painting the room in shades of orange and black. The music box sat on a bookshelf, a dark silhouette against the dimly lit wall. Alex was reading, lost in a book, when a sound sliced through the quiet. It was a slow, deliberate creak, the sound of old wood groaning under protest. His eyes darted towards the shelf. The lid of the music box was rising, opening by itself with an unnerving slowness. A moment later, a melody began to drift out, a haunting, melancholic tune that filled the apartment with a palpable sense of sorrow. It was a simple tune, yet it seemed to carry the weight of a long-forgotten tragedy. Startled, Alex stared at the box, his heart beginning to hammer against his ribs. Out of the corners of his eyes, he thought he saw shadows move, fleeting, formless things that danced just at the edge of his perception, disappearing the moment he tried to focus on them. A knot of pure dread tightened in Alex's stomach as the simple, sad melody began to warp. The tempo quickened erratically, the notes twisting into a discordant, frantic cacophony that grated on his nerves. The music was no longer just sad, it was desperate, insane. The once fleeting shadows in the corners of the room began to coalesce, darkening and growing more solid with each distorted note. They swirled together, pulling from the darkness until they formed a shape. A tall, impossibly gaunt figure with elongated limbs and a head that lolled at an unnatural angle. It had no face, only a void where features should have been. Alex's breath hitched, his eyes wide with a terror so profound it felt like ice water flooding his veins. He scrambled backwards, his chair screeching against the wooden floor as he tried to put distance between himself and the encroaching nightmare. As he stared, frozen in horror, the shadowy figure suddenly lunged forward, rushing directly towards the screen in a silent, terrifying assault. In that same instant, the lid of the music box slammed shut with a deafening crack, plunging the room back into absolute silence. The first rays of dawn crept through the window, illuminating an apartment that was now unnervingly still and empty. The chair lay toppled on the floor, a book splayed open beside it, but of Alex there was no sign. The air was heavy, holding the echo of a scream that was never uttered. The camera drifts slowly, silently across the room, past the overturned furniture and the quiet signs of a life abruptly interrupted. It comes to rest on the bookshelf, slowly zooming in on its target. There, sitting innocently amongst the other objects, is the old wooden music box. Its lid is closed, its carving serene in the morning light, betraying nothing of the night's horrors. It sits there, a silent, patient keeper of secrets waiting for its next song. This is a true story, a chilling tale whispered among antique collectors, a warning about the melodies that linger in forgotten things. The air in the antique shop was thick with the scent of dust and decay, a place where forgotten histories slept on cluttered shelves. Leo, a man whose passion was to awaken these histories, moved through the narrow aisles like a ghost himself. It was there, tucked away beneath a pile of yellowed lace, that he found it. The music box was a masterpiece of dark wood and tarnished silver, its surface cool to the touch, unnaturally so, as if it held a piece of winter within it. As he paid, the shopkeeper, a man with eyes as old as his wares, gave him a look, not of malice but of somber warning. He took Leo's money but offered no words, letting the silence hang heavy with unspoken dread. Back in the sanctuary of his study, surrounded by the silent witnesses of his collection, Leo set the box upon his mahogany desk. The room was cast in the warm, low glow of a single lamp, a stark contrast to the cold emanating from the object before him. With a hesitant click, he lifted the lid. The melody that unspooled was not the tinkling, sweet tune he expected. It was a haunting, discordant arrangement, a series of notes that seemed to crawl along the skin and settle deep within the bone. The music filled the space, and as it did, a shadow in the far corner of the room, a place the lamplight could not reach, seemed to deepen, to twist, to shift with a life of its own. In the days that followed, Leo's home, once a place of quiet refuge, became a theater of the unsettling. It began with whispers, faint and sibilant, that seemed to come from just behind his shoulder, only to fade when he turned. Then objects began to move. A book would be found open on the floor. A teacup would slide across the kitchen counter. A door would creak open to an empty hallway. A perpetual chill clung to the air, and the constant unnerving sensation of being watched gnawed at his sanity. He became a prisoner in his own home, his reflection in the mirror showing a man haunted and hollowed, his eyes wide with a growing paranoia. The haunting reached its terrifying crescendo one stormy night. Rain lashed against the windows as Leo sat frozen in his armchair, too afraid to move, too afraid to breathe. Suddenly, the silence was shattered. The music box on his desk sprang open of its own accord. The melody erupted, no longer a faint, haunting tune, but a loud, distorted shriek of twisted notes that grated against the ears. From the deepest, darkest corner of the study, a shape began to coalesce. It was impossibly tall and slender, a figure woven from shadow with fingers that stretched like the gnarled branches of a dead tree. It did not walk but glided, a silent, inexorable drift across the floor, its formless head fixed upon the petrified collector. The shadowy figure lunged forward, a silent scream of motion consuming the faint lamplight. The screen cuts to black, plunging everything into absolute darkness. For a moment, there is only the sound of the music box, its distorted melody playing its final frantic notes. Then with a sudden sharp snap, the music stops. All that remains is a profound, deafening silence.